Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo, where we dive deep into the real challenges of living out our faith in today's world. Today's topic is parenting in a digital age, and this one hits home for every parent trying to raise godly children in a world that is dominated by screens, social media, and the ever-evolving technology. How can we as parents protect, guide, and empower our children without losing touch with the fast-paced digital age? Recently in the news, about 12 states in America are suing TikTok. I'm sure you all know TikTok. Somehow, I've just refused to get on TikTok. They are suing TikTok, saying that it's addictive to children and it's harming their mental health. By the way, our last edition, we spoke about mental health. Joining me today is Omolayo Oyawoye, a dynamic trauma therapist, sex education expert, and a ministry leader who's also a parent navigating these same challenges. Together, today, we shall explore and see how we can balance faith, family, in this digital world that we live in. So get ready for a conversation that's practical, insightful, and packed with Bible-based wisdom. Like I always say, please share the link, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. I think it's very unfair, really. I mean, how can you come here every week, get all that you're getting, and you don't even press the subscribe button? When you subscribe and share, then more people get to see and hear what we're doing, okay? And it's really very important, the work that we're doing here. Thank you so much, Lion, and it's good to have you here with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Well done,
Yeah,
sir.
so I'd like to start by, please introduce yourself beyond what I've said. Tell us who you are. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Omolayo Oyawoye. Yeah, I'm a trauma therapist. Yeah, that's fine. I'm a trauma therapist and a sex education expert. I love young people and women, and that's because I had a relatively interesting childhood, and that's why I kind of like feel what young people feel today, right? And I found some wisdom in how to navigate childhood, how to help your children navigate growth, both physical, emotional, and I mean all round growth. So I love to teach, especially about their emotional and physical health. As a trauma therapist, I see how that childhood has a huge impact on adulthood, and you can be a better adult if you struggle during childhood and you do not get help. I'm trying to say that if you had a struggle, if you struggled during childhood, it would affect your adulthood if you don't get help. So yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell.
So when you say trauma therapist, what does that mean? I don't want to
Thank
assume.
you. Yes, thank you. And I always love to explain that also because so when people hear trauma, their mind basically goes to physical trauma. Maybe you've had an accident, and yes, that's correct. But I am an emotional trauma therapist. When you've encountered trauma on unexpected life events, unpleasant ones, stress, mental health issues that are impacting your overall wellness. That's where I come in. And many people have been through this because in this part of the world, we take for granted some of the childhood experiences we've had. So for instance, you saw your parents go through a divorce or separation or domestic abuse. That has a huge impact on a child's mental well-being. So trauma affects the structure of the brain, the function of the brain, and what the brain looks like. All right. So it means that if we have a brain scan of a child who's been traumatized and a child who hasn't been traumatized, you see the difference. And when the structure and the function of the brain is affected, it definitely affects your actions because our actions come from the mind, the brain, and everything like that. So I'm usually very interested in why do you behave the way you behave? Usually when you dig deeper, it's something from childhood. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much. I'm curious, but I want to hold my curiosity. I mean, I wanted to ask, for example, how does one become a trauma therapist? You know, is it
Okay.
something you learn in school? Is it a certificate, etc., etc.? I have a feeling that people who will be interested in this, maybe let's go ahead. How do you become a
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah?
So there are so many ways you can become a therapist. By the way, that is different from, I mean, saying you're a therapist is like saying you're a counselor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Mm-hmm.
different from being a psychiatrist, is different from being a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you have to go to school to study psychology, psychiatry, or counseling. So I have a certification in psychological counseling because counseling is also in different
Mm-hmm.
aspects, right? There's guidance and counseling. That's you're learning a lot about career and all of that, but
Mm-hmm.
psychological counseling also it deals with the mind, with the brain, and all of that. And then I went ahead to take certifications in trauma and in especially sexual abuse. So I am a sexual abuse survivor, and because of that, I needed to dig deep onto how does this happen? How do you heal from this? I began my healing journey over 20 years ago. I currently have a book. Yeah, I currently have a book, A Walk to Healing, that talks about, healing from trauma and all of that. So when you go through all of that, you take certifications, you never really stop learning about trauma because there's a whole lot. It's like a new field people are digging deep into to find out, okay, how can we help? Because the trauma responses and trauma symptoms are very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you don't see them on time. It's not like a physical trauma where you say, oh, you have a cut on your hand, let's apply iodine. It's something on the mind. And usually trauma responses are not always immediate. Sometimes they show up 10, 15, 30 years after. And when trauma is not resolved, it gets passed from generation to generation. A research showed that veterans of war who were who went through war and all of that, their trauma response um, could be traced to 14th generation. So for
Wow.
instance, yes, so for instance, this man had, been part of the war, had experienced all of that, and begins to drink, begins to get addicted to drugs and all of that. You could see this same thing in a child in the 14th generation. All right. So the
Mm-hmm.
child begins to drink, and you're wondering, oh, where's this coming from? And I mean, a child in the 14th generation is not likely to have met the great, great, great grandfather. He would never have observed. Children learn by observing, yeah. But there's
Mm-hmm.
other part where that the trauma a person goes through, if they don't resolve it, unintentionally, unconsciously, they keep passing it to their child passes it to a grandchild, and then it goes on like that. All right. And that's why there's a lot of research going on in there. And we need many more people who are learning about this to help humanity.
Very interesting because I just saw a reel of a message I preached a couple of weeks ago now. My content person put it out, and I was saying in that reel that you've got to investigate where you are coming from. I was talking
Yeah.
to married couples that you've got to investigate where you're coming from, because if you don't deal with some of those issues, you just discover that there's a repeat. So it's like your mom versus your dad becomes you versus your spouse, that kind of
Wow.
thing. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I mean, so this is real for those of us who are listening to this. If you have challenges in this area, you really want to deal with it. You can, I mean, that reel is on my Instagram, TRT with Noruwa is on my Facebook, the roundtable with Noruwa. I mean, it's been trending for a bit now. But let's come to the digital challenges.
Yeah.
All right, maybe
Yeah.
another day I'll bring you on and we can really talk about
Some trauma.
this
I'll be
trauma
glad.
thing. Yes, and you spoke about the fact that you had some, you were abused as a child.
Yeah, I
That's
was.
something that I would also want us to talk about sometime in the future, because I know that it's happening, and there are people who need to learn how to heal and move on, from there. But let's come back to our topic for today. What are the most common challenges that you've seen that parents face in raising their children in this digital age that we find ourselves?
Okay, so one of it you mentioned in your introductory remark, and that
Mm,
is screen, right?
mm,
Another is drug and substance abuse. Right
mm,
now, these two are key and they are fundamental in the overall growth of a child. Now,
Mm.
when I'm going to start from the screen issue, when a young child, and usually, it's because our world is fast paced, right? We are doing so much because we need to we need to earn more. It didn't used
Mm.
to be that way while we were growing up. Yeah, our
Mm.
parents had to work, right? But things were not this difficult economically, if you ask
Mm.
me. And so many times, parents in this age are busy. They need to get their children busy as well. And so you hand a toddler a device, a phone, a tablet, an iPad, or they're just sitting in front of the TV, right? Now, when a child has spent a number of hours watching, images scroll past, that's what happens with videos and all of that.
Mm.
Images scroll past, right?
Mm.
Actually, their brain is going on an overdrive. All
Mm.
right. And
Mm.
typically, a child can be there for hours. I mean, as long as the parent is undisturbed, the child can be there for hours. And because of this fast moving images, it is very addictive. And so a child wants to sit there. When they don't have a device, they are not settled. It's when you're on drugs and you're withdrawing. When you are not taking the drugs, you are not comfortable. There's something not, that's the way it is. It impacts the brain. There's a part of our brain that is responsible for pleasure, for emotions, for all of that, for reward. Yeah. And the moment you overstretch that part of the brain, it becomes addictive. You feel like rewarding yourself all of us love pleasure. Every human is either moving towards pain or pleasure. Yeah. And pleasure is not painful. And so we move towards pleasure. So that's how addictions come in,
Mm.
right? So screen is a major, especially for toddlers, for preteens and teenagers. That is a major.
Yeah. Yeah. I've found myself, I've become like an advocate. I see young people with children and they just hand the child a device, a baby.
Mm.
Children are given toys to play with so they can learn how to coordinate, those senses. But this digital age, technology, etc., has a positive and a negative. So I'd like us to very quickly talk about the pros and the cons so that it doesn't
Yeah,
look
right.
as against technology. So,
Yeah.
what are some of those positive effects and negative effects that, devices can have on our children? What have you noticed?
Okay. So, I mean, I'll start from the positive since I ended on the negative the other
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
I mean, having children, you know, um, um, find expression, right?
Hmm.
Technology helps children to find expression, and that's the truth. It helps children's creativity. It, in fact, helps children independence, right? Because, I
Yeah.
mean, children are able to do the assignments without parental guidance most of the time. They are able to explore the world, right? They are able to get to places they haven't been. They are able to see possibilities. They are able to, even connect with people all over the world who
Hmm.
motivate them, who inspire them. And I mean, and that is key for any societal growth, right? To meet with people who know better, to listen to people who have gone ahead. That also helps children as they grow older, as they get to know themselves, as they get to know their world. And we can't take that away, right? And
Hmm.
another thing is how that it helps them. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes, loud and
Okay.
clear. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm.
so it also helps them to I mean it's no longer shallow learning if you know what I mean. In our days, there was a lot of shallow learning and we crammed a lot and we just I mean whatever our teachers taught us, we took hook, line, and sinker. But right
Mhm.
now, children are able to, research. They're able to say, okay, so my teacher said this. How did this happen? It improves their cognitive abilities, right?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
helps them to even find out a lot more about subjects they never thought existed. It helps them in learning history and all of that. So yes, technology is good. We are not saying it's not good. We are just saying, just like every other thing, too much of anything is not good, right? And I think that's where we are making the error, right? So we feel because of all of this,
Positives.
oh, so they can go ahead, they can take as much as they want. I mean, food is good for our health, but if you eat too much, you're going to constipate, you're going to throw up, you're going to, all of those things. So, and the cons is if you ask me, my opinion outweighs the pros in the sense that the moment the brain is affected, it's a long shot. Because now God had made our brain in such a way that it can heal itself. That's what is called brain plasticity. The brain is like a mass of cords, wrapped together. And then when it's been impacted, the structure is impacted. And then when it begins to heal, it begins to unwrap on its own. All right. In fact, that's why you don't get people medicine, it's not the fastest or quickest thing you want to give to someone who's experiencing, mental health issues. You want to explore other means. That's why we have talk therapy, we have cognitive behavioral, we have all of those things that helps the brain to rewire itself, right? Okay. But screen, especially at a young age, would also negatively affect cognition. It can affect fine motor skills. It can impact communication and social skills. These two are critical, right? I mean, I've witnessed a child who at the time when this child was born, parents were really busy, legitimately busy, actually. And so this child was made to sit in front of the screen for long hours while the parents are going about their day. Right. Now, when the child got to a point where it was time to go to school, it was time to interact with other people, the child couldn't do that. He couldn't handle having to be in the present, in real life, right? Because you know what happens when you're with a device? It sucks you in. You are no longer where you are. You're following what you're listening to, what you're watching. And so now being in real life, there are no fast pictures or videos. It was difficult. It was difficult to mingle. It was difficult to communicate. It was difficult to start talking, right? For other children who begin to talk on time, they talk like like puppets, because I mean, that's what they hear often, right? Now, if you need to correct some of these challenges that I've mentioned, it takes a whole lot, all right? Because now you have to now shut down the screen, you have to reduce the number of hours, and you now need to engage the child, right, in such a way that they learn real life applications. People are in real life. And when people are in real life, you need to talk to people. You need to play with people. What the progress we were now able to make was the fact that, okay, so this child can now play with himself. It wasn't even ready to play with other people. And then the next progress is now to say, okay, there's one person I can now play with. So now plays with one person. And then now begins to, so it's a long shot. And that's why it's important. Yes. That's why it's important that we are, we supervise screen use, we supervise the use of technology, even for adults, right? You have adult children, you have children who are in their late teens, in their 20s, early 20s. See, there are so many heartbreaks that have happened over the internet, right? Because you just feel like, oh, finally, this is freedom. And you meet all sorts of people online, you connect with them, you exchange contacts, passwords, and then a whole lot, just someone you would never met and you may never meet. Okay. So supervision needs to come into it. Education needs to come into it. So it's not like you take the devices away completely. You need to educate them. These are the dangers of being online. These are the dangers of having a device and all of that.
Thank you so much. You've actually answered my third question, because I was going to ask that, how do we balance this equation? So I want my children to know how to use devices, particularly, the good part of it. At the same time, I don't want them to become addicted. And then I also don't want them to, the dangers are there. So how do you balance this as a parent? You don't want to be overbearing. At the same time, you're also careful not to just give them a free access that might then lead to their getting hurt and, and all of that. So how do you balance this equation?
So I think that before you even hand over a device to a child, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, my opinion, each family must have their values on technology and its use. What are our values? What do we stand for? What sites do we go to? How many hours do we spend on our devices? Everybody, including mom and dad. You see, that's where the problem is. The parents look at mommy and daddy and say, you have unlimited time on your device. Why are you limiting me? Yeah. But when we have a value that everybody's aware of, right? The same way I encourage parents to have a value on sex education. What do we do in this house? Do we peck? Do we kiss on the lips? These are the things we don't do. Yeah. So you have a value, a family value on technology use. And then before you hand over a device to a child, you let them know the rules to say, see, this is responsibility. And it's true. Owning a device, yeah, being online, it's a lot of responsibility, yeah? So we say, this is what you educate the child before they even handle a device. And then the rules are there to say, okay, by 7 p.m., everybody's device must be put here so that we go to bed fresh. I wouldn't advise that a 13-year-old has a personal device, an internet-enabled device, honestly. And it's my personal opinion. I told my first daughter she wouldn't have one until she's 16. In fact, I wanted to push it to 18. And the first device you're going to have is not going to be internet-enabled because I need you to know what real life is before you get sucked into the internet. Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on your family. It depends on what you want to do. But whatever it is, educate your children. Let them not be. Because the real issue is that when they lack the education, they're upset when you correct them. Because they want you to, why are you telling me this? I didn't know this before. Yeah. Now, by the time they now know it, it's quote unquote too late. So we need to set the rules straight before everybody begins to use the device. We need to also educate them on the dangers of technology, on what happens on social media. We need to educate them on all of that. Now we need to listen to them. It's important that we listen to them. What do you think? What are your thoughts about technology? You're asking them. What are your thoughts about being online? What do you think? So some of them can say, oh, my friends are there. My friends are on this app. They are using this app. Okay, so what do you think your friends are getting when they're on that app? Also, that's where the problem starts from. So they begin to say, oh, no, I just want to take pictures. Oh, okay, I just want to make friends. I just want to talk to my friends. Oh, yes, you should talk to your friends, right? But you know what? You can't talk to your friend the entire day. There are other things to do. When you listen to them, it helps you even know what to say to them, right? Okay. It helps you be objective in your conversations with them. Because what most parents say is, I just don't want you to use it. I just don't want you to use, and they're saying, why? Hello? Why don't? There has to be a reason. Children of this age always have a reason, all right? There has to be a reason, all right?
Your camera is off?
Yes, I'm trying to.
Okay.
I'm wondering what's going on.
Okay.
Oh, please excuse me.
Yeah, so while you're doing that, if you're joining us, this is the roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo. This is where we have those conversations on contemporary issues of the Christian faith. This is a Christian program. We try to give practical answers to the challenges that that are facing us. And today we have as our guest, Mrs. Omolayo, Oyawoye. Did I get it now?
Yes, you did.
Yes. A trauma therapist, a sex education expert, and like I always say, please share the link with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. And I don't think I said this at the beginning, but let me repeat it now, just as a disclaimer. We are not representing any other entity apart from ourselves. And so take note of that as you listen to us, okay? So tell me, we've already begun to talk about it, so but not using, let's veer into your sex education dimension, okay? How do parents have those difficult conversations about pornography inappropriate content, etc., etc.?
Okay, so I think that one of the issues we had growing up was that our parents found this conversation very difficult,
Mm-hmm.
because they felt that we were too young to understand it. They felt
Mm-hmm.
that we were too young to make a sense of it. And so they also felt that having a conversation about it with us would be exposing us to too much. I know many
Mm-hmm.
parents feel like that at the moment as well, right? But what they didn't know is that children are sexual beings. People do not begin to experience sexual feelings because they are married or because they're adults. Every every emotion that an adult shows, where I've always been there as a child. So whether we talk about it or not, the emotions are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And talking about it is not unnecessary exposure. Talking about it is education. It is exposing your child to what they are feeling and what they already know. The truth is, what you're not talking about is a question in the heart of your child,
Mm-hmm.
right? To say, why do I feel the way I feel when I see an opposite sex? Why do I have an erection, for instance? They are asking the questions. They are afraid to ask you because you never talked about it. And they don't even want to, they don't know how you're gonna take it, how you're gonna react. They're afraid you're gonna judge them. And that is why they go back to Google, they go back to their friends online, they go back to social media. Because trust me, when I type sex on Google, for instance, Google is not going to ask me how old am I. I am. It's going to give me everything that represents. All right. And so I can pick up all sorts of things from that. And so it's important that parents have that conversation with them
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their age. Of course, there are age appropriate ways, all right? There are age appropriate discussion when it comes to sexuality education. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, I mean, some months back, I was with my mom and we were talking about family planning. And it felt good, it felt weird at the same time. Like, oh, so my mom can talk about family planning with me right now. That what that means is that sexuality education never stops, right? As your
Mm-hmm.
child grows older, there's something older that you can talk to them about. We just need to know at what
Mm-hmm.
age. If they are
Age.
not asking you, they are asking someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you educate them, trust me, you have armed them with the weapon they need to be able to handle the pressure that comes with emotional and physical growth. Because with physical growth comes emotional growth. When you have emotional growth, you begin to have sensations in the body. You begin to feel something you've never felt before, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I mean, I had a client once who gives me permission to share his story, by the way, that he became addicted to porn and masturbation because he said that he just began to experience sensations and he began to touch himself and felt like, oh, this feels good. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how it began. And for many years, I'm talking about 20 something years, he couldn't stop. It got really bad. He needed to see a therapist. And the only thing, I mean, one of the major things missing at that time was education.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had called him as a teenager and said, see, this particular, and see, they don't have to tell you before you know you need to tell them. You
Mm-hmm.
have been there, you are the adult, you've experienced what they're currently experiencing. So don't wait for them to talk to you about it before you pick it up and say, see, you are at this age, you are 11, you are a boy, you are likely to experience wet dreams, you are likely to experience this, and you are likely to experience that. See, when a child is made to know the dangers of masturbation and porn, see, it's like drug addiction. You can do it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
See, masturbation, that addiction does not tell you, oh, this is not a right place. No. When you feel you feel pressured, you just go ahead wherever you are and you get it done. It could be the workplace, it could be the workplace, it could be in church, it could be at mosque, anywhere. But when a child is tutored and educated, they already know that, okay, this is not who I am. This is not
Mm-hmm.
what I'm supposed to be doing. And they can talk to you about it every time. Now you let them know pictures videos where people are naked or half naked is a trigger.
Mm.
And when they know this, they know how to protect themselves.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so one of the just the other day, I have a 10-year-old, and every time he's showing me that, he's building muscles now, and he says, Daddy, this is my six pack, and he says, I don't
I
have a
like
six
it.
pack, And but then again, I read recently that YouTube was beginning to affect young children of his age, because they think that unless you have those muscles that they see on YouTube, something is wrong with you. So, their image of themselves, self-image,
Yeah,
body shaming, etc., etc.,
yeah,
etc.
yeah.
So, question I want to ask you is this: how can a parent, help a child to gain confidence? In other words, let that child, we used to sing a song then, I am wonderfully made, I'm fearfully made, I belong to God. All right. How can you get your child to have that understanding, so that no matter what he sees online, he recognizes that, he's not defined by his six pack
But
or how
yeah.
slim, etc. Rather, you are defined by the fact that, you love God, God loves you, and you are a child of God. How do we send that message to our children, particularly as
Right.
Christian parents?
Christian parents. Thank you for that question, sir.
Mm.
So there's a whole, I mean, that's why the family is very important, because the family is where you find your identity.
Mm.
And in the family is where you find a sense of love, a sense of acceptance, a sense of value. So the first thing I want to talk about is not even what you tell your children, is how you show them who they are. Right?
Mm.
When a child grows up in an atmosphere of love, I'm still talking about the atmosphere. I've not even
Mm.
spoken about what you're saying. I'm saying just knowing that here I'm accepted, here I am loved, here I am celebrated. That is the first level of building a child's sense of self,
Mm.
because they know when they come home, they are coming home to a place of peace, a place where they are heard, a place where
Mhm.
they are listened to, a place where they are seen. All
Mhm.
right. And
Mhm.
when seeing a child, hearing a child goes beyond what they say.
Mm.
What is my child's body language? As a
Mm.
therapist, when you sit in front of us, we don't only listen to what you're saying, we're watching your body language, because your
Mm.
body language is saying a lot about what is on your mind.
Mm.
So when you observe your child's growth, you observe your child's body language, he comes back from school looking sad, just says, hello, mommy, hello, daddy. And you just assume that, oh, they are just tired. Like, he has had a long day in school. No, you've seen that body language. You've seen how they sat down and drew and dropped their shoulders and dropped their forehead. You already know that something is off. And you want to just say, see, I don't know how you're feeling right now. I need you to know that you can talk to me about it. Did something happen in school? That is how to build a child's sense of self. And then recurrently telling them how much you love them, how
Mm.
much you care about them. See, when you do all this, it's a natural thing you're doing to the brain, where they just feel loved, they feel cared for. And so when they see other people, there is no basis for comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is
Mm.
no, they can admire the person. I'm like, oh, this person looks like, but they don't get to now look at themselves and say, oh, but I don't look like this. Something wrong with me. No, because you had wired the brain to be content with what they look like,
Mhm. Mhm.
by your speech, by the environment to raise a child is critical.
Mhm.
The environment, the atmosphere they come into. See, you can keep telling a child, oh, I love you, oh, I care about you, and do all of that. But you and your spouse are always at each other's throat. You're always fighting. There's always violence. There's always yelling and screaming in the house. Again, like I said earlier, you're affecting the child's brain. You're affecting the child's brain, the functionality and the structure. And when that happens, there is a flood of cortisol in the brain. When that happens, the child begins to try to find love and acceptance outside of that chaos.
Mm. Mm.
So they look out to people, to their schoolmates, to their
Mm.
school teacher. Unfortunately, if they now meet someone who wants to take them for granted, they don't even know. They don't know somebody who's trying to hurt them. They know that, okay, this person is trying to take me for granted. This person is trying to hurt me. They are not aware of that, because they just want to be loved.
Mm.
They want to be loved. They don't have that at home. They can't merge what you're saying, they are seeing.
Yeah. As we're having this conversation, two things come to mind, two experience. I don't know why I've not forgotten them. My first two daughters, I mean, the first one is a mother herself now, but many, many years ago, I think she was about maybe 7 or 8 years old. We had gone to visit with a family friend, and that family friend had a child about my daughter's age. And so they were playing, and then the family friend ended up on my laps, kind of saying, "See, I'm on your daddy's laps." And my daughter said, "It doesn't matter. My daddy still loves me." You know?
Oh, that's so
I mean,
good.
and then years later, I mean, then my second daughter, it was Valentine's Day. And so I think she was in SS2 or SS1 or 2 at that time. So as she came home and I said, "Oh, your Valentine gift." She said, "Yes, I told my classmates my daddy will get me my Valentine gift."
Yes,
You
that's so
know?
nice.
Yeah, as I just said, "Oh, this is your Valentine." She said, "Yes, I told my classmates my daddy will get me my Valentine gift." I mean, so it means that nobody was going to say to her, "I'll buy you a gift," and because of
Yes,
that, you'll be
yes.
moved. Yeah, yeah. So I hear you.
Yes,
I
sir.
hear you. Yeah. So if you're just joining us, this is the Roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo. This is the place where we have conversations on contemporary issues in the Christian faith. And today we're looking at parenting in a digital age. And I have a guest in the house, Mrs. Omolayo Oyawoye, right? A
Yes.
trauma therapist and a sex education expert. And please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel, like and share. Actually, share this to your friends. I mean, an easy way is just copy the link and put it on your Facebook, the different groups you belong to on Facebook, and everybody can get to see it. The more people that interact with this, the more YouTube is like the algorithm. So YouTube will show it to more people. So please do that for us, because the issues we're talking about here are critical, and some parent needs to hear this. Okay. Talking about pornography, many years ago, there was a gentleman, then in a church at pastored, who had a problem with pornography. And somehow, I mean, God helped us and he was delivered of it. And then years later, he comes to me and says, "Pastor, there's a problem." And I thought, "Could you have gone back?" He said, "No, it's
Mm,
not me, it's my first son." I
mm,
mean, it was traumatic. I mean, the guy was panicking that
mm,
the same thing that almost destroyed me, my
mm,
first son is having, the
mm,
same issue. I want to believe God. I mean, they've since moved on, out of the country and all of that. All right. Cyberbullying is something that,
mm,
happens online. Number one question is, what are the signs that your child is being bullied, on the internet, or, how do you deal with, how do you recognize that a child is going through trauma, online trauma? How can you
okay.
detect that? What are the telltale signs, and what can you do to help that child?
Okay. Thank you so much for this very important question. Now, when a child has been bullied online, you get to see it physically.
Mm,
When a child has been traumatized, it would affect it would begin to affect them physically on
mm,
their body, I mean.
mm,
And that's why I was saying earlier that you need to see your children, you need to observe, because they're not likely to tell you that they were bullied online. All right. But when you see a child who gets easily startled, either when you call their names, either when they hear a loud sound, or when they hear the sound of a door being shut, and they are easily startled or jack up that way, that is a sign that there's a bullying going on somewhere, either
mm,
online or in school or at home or somewhere.
mm,
Right? It means that there's a lot of fear, because with bullying comes fear, right? With bullying comes low sense of self, right? So when you notice this in a child, that's a first obvious sign that a child is being bullied online. When you see your child is putting an extra effort in the way they look, and I'm not saying it's wrong for them to want to look good or want to look but that's why I added the word extra, to say they
mm,
want to extra look, they are trying to stuff something into their doing all of those things. It means there's someone they are trying to impress, right? And you want to find out who is the person online, or in school, or in church, or somewhere, right? And see, when you see these signs, one, do not panic and don't go on a judgmental spree. where you say, oh, why are you doing this? And you shouting, it's not going to resolve anything. See, children below 25 do not have a perfectly formed prefrontal cortex. Now, prefrontal cortex is the brain behind your forehead. That's the brain where we make sense of things. That's the brain where we look, we see, we know right from wrong.
Okay.
So it's until they are 25 that part of the brain is completely and perfectly formed. That is why you would always be at loggerheads with your teenagers, your children in their early teens, because they would never see what you're seeing. That part of their brain where they are supposed to see what you're saying is not properly developed. So quit fighting. What do? You appeal to their emotions. And that's why yelling, shouting, creating drama does not usually resolve it. Have a conversation with them. And when you have a conversation, you are not the one talking. You are listening. You are asking questions, genuinely wanting to know, right? To say that, okay, I've noticed for the past few days that you're easily afraid. Is there something I need to know? Come, let me give you a hug. Usually when someone is afraid a lot in that manner, give them a hug. First of all, hold them. Just hold them. Don't say anything. They don't want to hear you at that time. They just want to feel some sense of safety. So hold them, give them a hug, and say, is there something you want to talk about? Did something happen? Did someone say something? All right. And when they feel some sense of safety, that's when they can open up to you, because no one can protect a child as much as their parents. All right. So you want to be the one they will run to when that is happening. Now, also, some of the signs you see, they may begin to have nightmares. Yeah. They may begin to have nightmares, hearing the voice of the person they heard that is, because, cyberbullying is not just trolling. These Gen Zs, we call it trolling, yeah? It's not just trolling. It's also sending scary pictures, videos, and sounds, anything to just scare the other person on the other line, all right? So if your child had experienced cyberbullying with pictures, sounds, and all of that, it may impact them in their sleeplessness, nightmares, and all of that may come into play, all right? So don't assume that it's because they overplayed. When we had nightmares, our parents assume that it's because you overplayed the night before. Don't assume it's because they overplayed. Ask them questions. What is going on? Especially when your children are older and they stay a lot on their devices. Now, when you see that it's something that may be beyond your control, you may actually need to seek the help of a therapist.
Thank you so much. I'm enjoying this conversation. Okay, so what practical tips can you share for families to strengthen their connections with each other, and with God, so that, they can better navigate, this tech-driven era that we find ourselves?
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. One of the critical things to family bonding is time, quality time spent together. And I want to appeal to every parent listening to me to say, I know you are busy, legitimately busy. You need to make money. You need to make your family comfortable, especially the daddies, right? But I need you to know that nothing will be able to replace the time you spend with your children. They would never forget it in many years. I mean, I'm grateful for the stories with your daughters that you shared. So we have 3 daughters, and every Valentine's Day, my husband would buy gifts for them for Val and write them love notes and all of that. And I mean, when you mentioned yours, I began to feel so good, like, oh my God, we are doing something good. We are doing something right. They don't forget. They don't forget. I'm sure that when your daughters have to speak to younger girls or talk somewhere on a Val's Day, they would remember. And it is time spent together, time playing together. So always find it, impute it in your calendar. Let everybody know that this day, every week or every month, it's just us. We are not inviting any guests. It's just family. And see, when we say spend quality time together, parents assume it's a time to correct their children. No, that's not what I'm talking about. We are used to just always lashing out, always trying to set them straight. Don't let them make errors. No, we are talking about a relaxed time. See, there'll be a time for you to correct them, but let there be a time where it's just you and them talking about life. You bring back memories of when you were their age, tell them the errors you made, and share funny jokes about where you're coming from. You see, your children will look forward to that time, because at least it's not a time where daddy is saying, don't do this, don't do that. Or mommy is saying, sit down there, don't sit down there. Yeah. So spending quality time together helps to build a bond of family. And when there's a bond of family, children are more likely to talk to you. They're more likely to express themselves. Even if they don't say it, they can write it. They will just write it somewhere and drop it on in your room to say, Mommy, I this happened, that happened. And that trust will help you to be able to, advise them and tell them what they need to do. So spend quality time together, create fun memories. Right? Create fun memories. Be deliberate about creating it. Recently, my second daughter turned 10 and we had to be away, right? Because we are pastors, we had to be away at a convention. We had to come back. I had to come back to let her know that, see, we went away because we needed to be out for work, but because it's your birthday, I am here. And on that same day, my husband also drove in, and when we were at our school, we took cakes and everything. And when she saw my husband from the gate, she screamed, Daddy, we're like, oh my God, my father is here. I could tell, everybody could tell that just the fact that her dad showed up made everything to her. She left the cake, left her friend, went to give her father a hug. I'm sure she will never forget that birthday. And honestly, we didn't do any big party, but just the fact that my dad left everything to come is everything. So create fun memories, be deliberate, be intentional, sit down and plan it and say, how can I surprise my kids this time? What can I do to give them a wow time? All right. This may not be every day, honestly. It may be something you do once in a year, but let it be something they are used to. All right. So all of this will help the family bond. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is devotions, right? We grew up with devotions. It's one of the many great things that parents did for us, to say we'll pray every night together as a family, or we'll pray every morning together as a family. And then now devotion in their age should change. It shouldn't be the way we're doing ours. Let them be involved. So let one of them lead the prayers today. Let one of them lead the Bible reading today, and let them share with their learnings. And from the learnings, you share life lessons as well. All right. Now, what something the Lord told me at the beginning of this year was to have a family confession based off of our family word for the year. It was the first time that was happening to me, and says, this is what I'm giving your family for the year. Share with your kids. So it's a family confession for us after every devotion. See, what you're doing is to leave them a spiritual legacy, right? You're connecting them to God so that when you're not there, they know they have God to call on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time, having this conversation. Like I said, we will bring you back. We need to hear that story. What happened? How did you deal with it? And what lessons, have you learned that you can share? I believe that there's somebody out there who probably is passing through that same path, that needs to hear this. Thank you so much. It's
my pleasure. Thank you for having me, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another edition of the Roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo. Remember, on Instagram is at TRT with Noruwa. On YouTube, it's at the Roundtable with Noruwa. And on Facebook is the Roundtable with Noruwa. Of course, Noruwa Edokpolo is my personal Instagram handle. Our next episode is a bomb. And we'll be discussing, strangely, a phenomenon that is becoming even common amongst believers as Christians. We're looking at, what do you do with the side chick? Sadly so, when we talk about this digital age and etc., is affecting us in diverse ways. We are having now different types of influencers. Okay, for a season there was a push for polygamy. There was all manner of messages supporting polygamy, defending polygamy, etc., from supposed, Christian voices, and I was wondering what's happening here. And so also the issue of the side chick has become a very, sadly so, prevalent. So the question is, how do you deal with it? Your spouse maybe has had an epiphany and has come to say this happened, whether I planned it or not, it happened. So the question is, how do we deal with it? Is there a path? Can you create a path back to trust, to loving again and all of that? And I have two very interesting guests, Ejiro Okolo and Mrs. Modupe Hirim. They are both experts in this area. They're marriage counselors and coaches. So I'm looking forward to that. That will be on the first Wednesday of November. I need to get the date, but the first Wednesday of November, 8 p.m., they will be here with us, and we'll be looking at how to deal with the side chick. How do you recover your relationship? How do you restore it after it's been affected by this infidelity, in plain English? And also finally, so I do a mentorship program for married men. I run this. This will be probably the fourth cohort. I call this particular one the Men of Valor. We'll be sending out details of it shortly. We should start in November. So are you a married man and you want to be more, want to be better, a better father, a better husband, a better person all round, where we'll be starting that program in November. I will be telling you a bit more about it as the time draws nearer. Until then, thank you so much. Thank you, Ma. It's been a pleasure having you, and I do hope that we can, have you come on again. All right, everybody. Thank you, everybody, and bye. God bless you. Thank you.